I will talk today about very briefly and shortly about servitization, which is not so popular or familiar word. People are not so familiar with that word as we expected. I was part of few projects that were dealing with servitization, which is transforming products into services. And I hope that after this 30 or 45 minutes, you will get at least better information, better view on the topic, and that you will have more interest in the topic, because there are some really exciting and interesting stuff that can be done when you are trying to support someone's servitization. So it is not some kind of scheme how to expel product manufacturing from Europe. So our motivation when we were running few servitization projects was actually just the opposite, to support and preserve manufacturing industries in Europe, so making them more competitive by supporting or helping them to transform their products and into services, or at least to kind of expand their value proposition by adding some services to their products. So that can be quite valuable and really appreciated and accepted by the customers. So it was, at least we had the opportunity to work with some companies that created really tangible results for them and for their customers. So the customers were happier and their balance sheet was improved. So it is even not very popular word. It's really it creates tangible values for all those involved, if of course applied right. So in a nutshell, servitization means that you are starting to deliver product as a service. So instead of selling your product, you are creating service based on the product. So in a nutshell, you are still manufacturing your product, but you are either leasing or allowing customers to use that product and actually pays or gains the benefit based on using the product. This is the most extreme example. It's not the black or white situation though, so there is a huge, let's say, set of shades of gray in between. So there is also a kind of universe of product service bundles, which can also improve value delivered to customers, competitiveness of the company, overall profitability, overall income, customer understanding. So there are a lot of different outcomes based on this servitization thing. So I will start with few examples which are at the beginning global, and then I will also give you a few examples that were created local in the, let's say, Central Europe setting or Italy and Croatia setting. So two examples from local SMEs, because we were trying to focus our efforts into creating some kind of methodology or support scheme for SMEs, because this is not a new thing. So this is something that actually exists for a number of years, and multinationals are using that. So let's say one of the most interesting example is that, some kind of tale of two tires. So one is, they're pretty much identical, or maybe experts will know the difference, but to regular customer, they look the same. Of course, their features are different. Technology behind might be really different. So in this example, this story is about one tire that is made in EU. It's high-tech actually product, it's high-quality product, it's environmentally friendly with low footprint, and the other tire is not. So first tire is very efficient, it reduces fuel consumption, has a good grip during the lifetime of a tire, so its duration is prolonged, and the other is actually not. So of course, total lifetime costs are very low for this high-tech tire, and actually quite high for this not high-tech tire. Same with the same with the environmental impact. And no one actually just looking at the tire can tell the difference, but you know, the price tag is very different because high-tech tire is expensive. So the price tag for that tire is high, and for not so technologically advanced or old generation tire is actually low price tag. And what customers see at first is, you know, low priced versus high price tire, and they choose very often, you know, easy way out. You know, if you need to invest a lot upfront, so it's much easier to, especially for those who are not very skilled in, you know, calculating total cost of ownership, so they will buy a cheaper tire, and because, you know, high upfront costs are not so attractive, and the high-tech or EU based production has issues. So servitization, or trying to change the rules of the game, is actually to enable manufacturing company to leverage its technology, to its know-how, efficiency, cost reduction, quality. So instead of selling, you know, tire per piece and actually, you know, asking price per tire, the high-tech company started to ask a price per kilometer. So servitized tire, in order to address that high upfront cost, decided to actually initially that the initial price should be zero. So there is no upfront investment. The only cost is cost per kilometer. And in this type of setting, you know, the more expensive tire actually has a better cost benefit ratio, and actually becomes more advanced. So the feature which are sell this tire versus safety, efficiency, durability. So it's not now, let's say, the topic of the game is not about having tires, it's about having possibility to drive safely, it's having possibility to drive efficient, and, you know, and to have a durable tires, which, so there is no downtime for big trucks, because they can they should go to the to service station and to change their tires not so often. So this is the let's say the transformation, how from very commoditized product, which was mostly compared based on price, just, you know, totally shifted focus of the customers into comparing total cost of ownership, and actually paying less even with more expensive tires, because that actually the company behind is Michelin, that actually started to sell this type of or create this type of value proposition for the US market. And actually they calculated that reduced costs for fuel consumption for big trucks, of course, was higher than overall cost for all tires. So actually tires were paying for themselves. So and initially they were not so competitive because the initial, you know, upfront investment was high. Second, also global example that also can be found around the world is, you know, instead of light tubes, you can sell illuminated space. So instead, because, you know, that was I think the first global or known example is when Philips created a contract with the Amsterdam airport, which was, okay, you know, you don't want to own light tubes. You actually want to have illuminated spaces within the public spaces when they are supposed to be illuminated in the right way, with the right amount of light, and you don't want to have a illuminated space when it's empty and when it's not, there is no need for illumination in that space. So they actually started to sell infrastructure efficiency and management instead of light tubes. And probably the most known example is example, of course, of jet engines, which were transformed into selling power instead of jet engines. So instead transforming something that was actually upfront very high fixed costs. So it was, you know, every airplane in order to fly has to have a really expensive piece of equipment, which is a jet engine. That jet engine, of course, also is a important cost driver, because if it's not serviced well, it will, you know, it will have a huge impact on the bottom line of the overall airline company, because it might also doesn't be so efficient. So the fuel consumption will be higher. So it's important to have jet engines serviced well. So the company that actually produced jet engines started to sell power created by those engines instead of engines. So the airline companies stopped buying and owning jet engines and started and had a contract with Rolls-Royce, actually, who I think started this first. They started to buy power created by engines that enabled airplanes to fly. So they transformed something that was upfront fixed cost into proportional cost, which is actually even more important when airplanes doesn't fly, you know, because if they are not flying, so it means they are not making money. So it doesn't even have that type of cost. So when the airplanes are, you know, grounded because of the strikes or because of Corona or because of it's not the season, so there is no cost for the airline. And when the airline is making money, so it's some kind of, even if we want, profit sharing scheme where producer of really important piece of equipment is actually supporting company to make more money, or to, you know, share that profits when they are making profits, and not drawing them down when they are not, they have issues with or challenges with markets, or not making money because they are not flying. So these three examples are old. So they are not like in the last few years. So multinationals, like I said, are doing it for decades. The problem with servitization is that, you know, the SMEs are not doing that. And I will come to the challenge for the SMEs and why the SMEs had challenge or didn't usually haven't tried to do it, and why today is probably the bit different situation. So it's much easier to servitize product today than it was like 10 or 20 or 30 years ago. But before that, few features of the servitization, you already heard something that it transformed upfront costs into, let's say, total cost of ownership, and it enables those who are more expensive but has a lower total cost of ownership to actually leverage that fact. So there are some kind of straightforward benefits, but there are also some kind of benefits which are based on the pure nature of the service, and that benefit is that, you know, products are global. but services are local. So it's much easier to commoditize product because you can produce every product in China, and it's just a question of quantity. Does it make sense to produce that product in China? But it's pretty much impossible to create services in China and then export those services worldwide, because services are, unless they are IT services, but even then there are some kind of challenges for the IT services. The services are intrinsically local, so especially if they include some kind of human touch to them. So this challenge commoditization based on the low-cost workforce which is overseas, and it enables to leverage that additional value created by the local services. The other, just from the EU perspective, benefit is actually that since let's say the EU products are supposed to be better, or at least to have a better features than global products, especially those which are superior by their functionality. Actually, servitization enable to sell more those superior products with superior functionality at premium prices, because it introduced this profit sharing models, or it enables you to leverage those superior functionalities which are actually barrier for those who cannot see if they are actually there or cannot measure there. Especially that's also a problem from the SMEs perspective. So SMEs have trouble to create servitized products or to servitize their product, but also they have they're not so good at understanding this measure, to measure if something is more profitable on the long run, and that's also this is that partly short-sighted way of doing business is a barrier both for servitization, but also both for buying more products which are of a higher quality. So coming to that challenge for the SMEs, so they are, especially manufacturing SMEs, are lagging behind. So they are not so good in implementing servitization, and there are some actually clear reasons why they're. So they have a limited resources. You need to dedicate some team to work on concept of services, of new service. They need to have some funds in order, because if you have a servitized product, you will, as a producer, you will remain owner of that product. So you are supposed to, that will impact your the amount of money that you need to have in order to finance all the deal. So there are servitized product usually ask for significant or not so significant, but some financial resources in order to support the scheme. So people, resources, sometimes even IT infrastructure, the resources in the form of vans or trucks or people which will support. So there are some resources that come intrinsically with servitization, and SMEs sometimes, very often, lacks those resources. Of course, they have a limited human resources, and that is a huge challenge, because that limited human resource pool within the SME also brings the lack of competencies. So SMEs very often do not know to cope with advanced or at least new way of doing things, understanding markets. They missed this all new sets of managing companies that actually is a part of the startup scene as a standard tools, which better address these volatile changes in the market. So this that markets are not fixed anymore and are changing daily. So these competencies are usually not part of the traditional manufacturing SMEs, especially those which are those, we have a family business that does some metal working for 100 of years. So these are actually the core, the highest quality manufacturing businesses in Europe, and they have they lack competencies to address these changes on the market and to accept these different ways, different business models, so different ways of doing things, especially towards customers. Their very often challenge is that they have short-term thinking horizon. So they are supposed to pay bills, and they are supposed to do operational decisions. They are supposed to organize their manufacturing. They are in love with their products, and they need to ship their products. And that's then the problem is, to make a distance and to have a clear perspective on a, let's say, long-term. Usually, these servitization projects, especially from the multinational perspective, can take years to be developed and then to be scaled up. SMEs doesn't have time, or they cannot afford this type of thinking because they need to deliver immediate results. They cannot afford to, set a team and then just invest $1 million or 2 million of euros into some design thinking or whatever exercise. And, if it doesn't work, okay, they tried. Manufacturing SMEs do not have a possibility to that. And maybe even the greatest barrier is that they are about the product. The product is a king. It's important to have a highest quality product, especially with those who are actually creating product of a high quality or excellent product. So it's, they are focused on improving a product, not customer experience. They are focused on going on the higher level of the market, not making not so good product, but which can serve the mainstream market. So it's they are engineers. They are not marketers. They are not about, so they are stuck with the product. They love their product, and they will probably die with their product because because the product is their core reason. That's the reason why they live. That's probably the biggest challenge when we start to talk about, okay, can you think about some services which might, improve the value that your product is. My product is great. What kind of services can improve because my product is, that's very often the challenge. And, the methodology that we created tried to address those shortcomings or barriers from the manufacturing SMEs perspective. So we created within the one project. I don't know why these lines are here. Sorry for that. I don't know if you see them, but nevertheless. So we tried to create a service innovation methodology which was designed and adapted for the SMEs. So for especially manufacturing SMEs, which all those shortcomings or limitations and things that are, challenged. So methodology that can deliver results within the 6 to 12 months. Methodology that is not so resource intensive. Methodology that uses straightforward and relatively simple and standardized tools. Methodology that can gradually transform their focus from products into service product area and then maybe to service. So methodology that accepts that transition cannot be done in one step. So we started with assumption that they cannot, if they were just doing the product and selling the product, so it's pretty much not likely to see that they are going to start selling services and stop selling their product. And just, so probably they need to go and, you cannot jump over 10 steps. You can jump maybe 2 or 3 steps, but not 10. So it should be a gradual transition. And this methodology is also a gradual shift of focus from the product into customers, and then the values that customers actually would appreciate. And this value might come from the additional services that can be, so this type of like, how to cook a frog. You need to, if you try to cook a frog in the already boiling water, so the frog will jump out. But if you put the frog in the cold water and then just gradually increase the temperature, the frog wouldn't, perceive that there is something that change, and then it will stick. Even the temperature will become quite hot. Since the project was about some kind of or led and run within the business support organization, average business support organization from the Central Europe, so we try to adapt it that pretty much every average or maybe experienced average consultant within a business support organization in Central Europe, or some consultants that work with the companies, can relatively easily understand and start to use that methodology. And hopefully the methodology is sustainable and evolving, and it will enable to actually exchange best practices and experience in the future. So it has the 5 steps. It works in a way that this frog boiling procedure actually reflects those 5 steps. So first step is to get a company perspective, how they perceive what they are offering customers, and what's the most important towards customers from their perspective. So first, to understand their and to leverage their knowledge, because they understand their customers. They just need to shift their perspective from product centric into a customer centric way of looking at things. And then we were betting that some ideas for services will just pop up. So the second step is actually to guide them and try to shift them and put them in the customer shoes. So that was the kind of, okay, can you better look at the customers in a little bit different way, so that after leveraging their already present knowledge and just putting them some kind of, and giving them some tools to better analyze that knowledge, then shifting them and helping them to better understand their customers and customer perspective and customer point of view. So these 2 steps are actually basics or grounds for service design. So just based on this knowledge, new services usually pop up, and it was pretty much in like 80 to 90% of companies, after finishing this initial first 2 steps, they had some ideas for, I think almost 90%. We have some kind of statistics, but they have ideas for service design. Of course, there is huge gap between having idea and actually putting service on the market. But if you just give even manufacturing companies, product-oriented companies, decent common sense set of tools and concept just to reshuffle their knowledge, ideas for new services will pop up. The challenge was the implementation, and that was part of the methodology. So it wasn't like, okay, now you have an idea for service and see you soon, but just do it. The idea was to actually support them during the implementation to introduce part of the startup way of doing things, to support traditional companies with new tools, with new concepts, with new way of managing things in order to increase the likelihood of success. So that was the key challenge, not just to create service, but to support companies into putting that service on the market. And once they implement this type of product service system, it actually also needs to change the overall business model. So this is this type of gradual change. Okay, we started with their knowledge and with their view, and then just shift them into, okay, this is the, okay, this is, can you imagine how customers are thinking, and maybe something can be added, and usually that something that can be added is a service. So can we implement it? So some of that can be implemented, and once it's implemented, it has impact of the overall business model, and actually that overall business model has to be implemented in order to actually make things sustainable. So the idea is to not just have exercise of new services, but to create additional income and to create additional, profits, not just income. So to create more money than it actually costed, at least on the, let's say, relatively short, long term, because at the beginning it always asks for some kind of investment. Our challenge was to make it simply enough so that it can be implemented by people who are not expert in service innovation and servitization. So they are so that regular consultants or regular people who work in the business support organizations can actually implement that in their everyday work with the companies. So we actually try to use Lego principles. So with a number of simple tools and the concepts, you can create quite complex schemes and structures. If you just have a few sets of standardized elements, and if the sequence and the energy or the relationship is right, actually you can create quite complex and complicated and elaborate structures, and actually elaborate services which can impact business models of the companies on the long term quite deeply and to deliver results. So we actually measured results, and the results were new services on the market. So by created impact, new services on the foreign markets. So that was it worked well. The only thing that actually wasn't as we expected is that usually it was impossible to expect the results within the 6 months. So that was our initial assumption, that you can deliver income, start to first money coming from the market within the 6 months, but usually it took let's say 12 months plus minus 3. So the basic sources are, the mainstream methodologies or design thinking tools, some theory, some concepts and tools from disruptive innovation theory, some tools from the blue ocean, business model generation kind of system tools, startup approach created by customer developments, of course, some traditional strategic planning and maybe some new planning based on the assumptions, but these are the, let's say, high level sources which were downsized on the, let's say, really hands-on grounded level of practitioners. So these are the key tools like customer. So this is not something which is complex to use and to learn. Pretty much every consultant that works with startups or that has experience in few years experience in working with companies started to use 60 or 70 of the percent of these tools, and so there is just need to add or to learn a few of them, which are also usually not so complex, and they're straightforward and even intuitive to use. So all these tools, of course, can be found in on some links and the books that we or some kind of books or that we created as a result of the project. So they are available for free, and of course, I would be really happy if you can try to use it and to see how it will work in your example. Just a few two cases. One from Italy that were actually created within the project. So we had like 90 something companies as a pilots, and I think 50 something companies actually created service that was put on the market. So that was a really good statistics. These examples are examples that of not something radical, not something, you know, epiphany, but something that was more like a common sense once they applied. So one company from northern Italy, they are actually distributor of a diesel fuel for agricultural, you know, big either companies or people who had fields, so they need diesel fuel in order to power up their either irrigation system or tractors, combiners, harvesters, whatever. So diesel fuel is a commodity as is. So this is a bit different because this is a commodity with usually with some kind of sense of urgency. You know, no one cares about diesel fuel from these farmers unless they are out of it. And then when they feel that they don't have any more diesel fuel, of course, their business will stop. And since they are not, you know, some of them are relatively near roads and some of them are not so easy to deliver. So in order to prevent this type of sense of urgency, in order to enable them to have it really secure, they actually just introduced one sensor in their already distributed tanks and made a deal so that they can plan and deliver their diesel fuel when they have a signal from the sensor that the level of the diesel is lower than 1/3 or something like that, so that they can plan the routes more efficient. So they had a window of delivery for 5 days instead of 5 hours, which also helped them to reduce their costs. So this was some kind of free service. So this service didn't create additional income per se, but actually it enabled them to tie their customers much stronger. So they actually avoided commoditization because they knew before the customer knew that the new fuel, that there is need for diesel, and they actually start to send the trucks even before the farmers ordered trucks because they were, they had that information before them. So this is really simple way of creating a service that actually wasn't income stream or enabled them to make more money, but actually impacted their bottom line quite successfully, and actually enabled them to protect their own customer on a commoditized market. The other example was one from Croatia, the company that actually delivers parking systems, so not just ramps or electronics, but the parking system overall. So from the customer perspective, it's investment, And for those who have a seasonal businesses or those who doesn't have enough money to invest in front or doesn't know how to run the business, they offer the whole package. So we will take care of everything. So you will just have a functionality of protecting your parking from unlawful or unwanted entries. So whoever wants to go to your parking, it will be controlled. Of course, it will be enabled some kind of payment system, and they started to charge service instead of parking system, and it was cost per toll gate bar raise. So in case of free parkings, so okay, you give your parking for free and you will pay to us anytime that the toll gate is raised or not, or percentage of tickets paid. So it's actually a pure profit sharing model. So which are the benefits actually that we saw that that happened? So the first that I already actually mentioned is that it enables product commoditization. So it's very difficult to compare products just based on the price when you bundle them with services, because services bring additional value. It enables, as you can, as you saw in the example of that diesel distributor, it enables customer lock-in. So when the customers are, or I don't know, it's very difficult to change suppliers of your parking system when someone else's parking system is already installed and in place, or it's very difficult to change the plain engine when the Rolls-Royce already installed plain engine. So it's not just, it's customer lock-in based on the benefits, because it pays off to actually use Servitize product, but because of the inconvenience. So sometimes it's very inconvenient to switch from accepted Servitize product to just product. Even if someone can say, okay, on the short run or short term, it pays off to go back on. Now we have a lot of money. Now we can buy a printer. It's if you have or if you are accustomed to pay per copy, it really has to be huge benefit in order to say, okay, now I will also take care of toners and of servicing of my printers and everything. So it locks in customers. What is really important from the SME's perspective, but also from the EU Commission perspective, is that servitization is a great driver for digitalization. So digitalization is a word of the not decade but 7 years, or at least next 7 years. And if it is just to digitalize, so it's not always clear if digitalization per se will bring additional value to companies and improve their competitiveness, improve their bottom line. But if you digitalize product and then start to servitize those products, then this is the way how you can actually really leverage digitalized product, because they will still be a good product, but digitalization enables creation of new income streams based on this digitalized product. I had example of one Croatian company that produces systems for railroads, like the crossings and stuff, and they first started to offer insights based on information gathered from the sensors, and then they got additional information requests from customers, and then they start to charge for that additional. So they were gathering information from the sensors, even so, because it helped them to improve their products and to control if they are working. But these additional insights actually enable them to create a totally new revenue streams. So and today is like 20%. So in 3 or 4 years, they went from the 100% income just from the products to the 80-20%, so 80% from the products, which are really huge investments, and 20% from selling knowledge based on the information of how those products were used. And that also help them or force them to also invest to new technologies, to new sensors, to artificial intelligence, to this type of solutions that actually will also boost their capability to produce that knowledge. And hopefully, if done right, the servitization will increase profit, and that will be some kind of final nail in the, not in the coffin, but in this case of why the manufacturing companies should really think about of servitization of, or at least adding some services to their products. Of course, if done right, so it should be done with the focus of making more money, not just with the focus of just developing a service because it's so cool to have a servitized product. Servitized product also had to be more competitive than unservitized product. Overall, this methodology, which you will see the links at the end of the day, is like, okay, reduced. So it's not ideal. It's, let's say, downsized methodology, simplified, because we wanted to create something which will be relatively or really easy to apply. It have free toolkits and instructions for it. That's that book or PDF that I already mentioned. And interestingly, it also brought opportunity to to get the certificate from the Bureau Veritas. So Italian branch of Bureau Veritas was interested to create this type of certification, and we hope to actually on the long term. So Corona didn't help with the spread of this network, but we hope that this will take off in the following years, and that this will create some kind of not just network, but the body of knowledge and experience, which will actually improve the capabilities of all those servitization managers or consultants involved. These are useful things. If you just want, you can Google Things Plus and you will get the links. This is the original project that has all information about it. This is one of the follow-up projects, which is focused on Industry 4.0 implementations, which also have a part that is trying to introduce servitization as a mean to validate and commercialize and create additional benefits from Industry 4.0 implementation. This is the register of the certified expert at the moment. It's like 10 of us, and of course my favorite source for servitization as a topic, it's Institute for Manufacturing at Cambridge, which actually is one of for those who want to learn more and want to maybe check something, that's where I was checking, and when I was learning, when I wanted to get more information than just from this usual sources that we used. Thank you for your attention. If you have questions, and if I know to answer, I hope I will be able to answer. If not, I might know someone who actually knows to answer. I will, of course, the slides will be shared, and I hope that this 45 minutes or so were useful from your perspective. So I will now stop sharing and open. So if there are some, okay, there are some questions in the chat. Okay. Please elaborate a little bit on product service system. So being Croatia very dependent on service sector, it seems that it would be key to address productization of services. Well, productization of services is, of course, interesting topic. It's the other way around. So it's trying to bundle service into visually or actually really into a product, and then services, as they are, have their limits. So, at some point they are, they are local. So that's their benefit from the, if you're looking for, from the perspective of those who want to run from the global competition. But of course, if you want to make your business globally successful, then that local feature of the services can be a limitation or can be a barrier for your success. So yes, productization is interesting thing. It's not the topic of my story. The problem why we were motivated, so a few partners from various countries, is not that we are, yes, we are, all of our countries are dependent on services, not just tourism. And the problem is that usually business support organizations and overall national innovation systems doesn't have a very successful schemes for supporting services. Are much more are interested in supporting products or innovation of products. And that's how we wanted to actually make also kind of case to, okay, service, you are coming from the service economy, and all those countries in Central Europe are kind of service economies. And we do not support innovation of services. So that's why we have this product. Productization is an interesting thing. We can have a discussion, but it's the other way around. And I think it's a topic for maybe a different session.